story you'll definitely want to hear to the end. Mama, don't cry. Do you hear me? Don't you dare shed another tear for that monster. I took my revenge. For every wrinkle by your tear-filled eyes, for every gray hair that appeared before its time, for every gasp that got stuck in your chest from fear and resentment, I took revenge on Father for all your tears. And let this story be my confession and your liberation. It all began on the day I turned 16. A day that should have been a celebration turned into another act of our family tragic comedy, where the main and only spectator and concurrently the victim was always you, Mama. Father, as always, came home tipsy, but this time his usual drunken sullenness escalated into something more. He brought a woman with him. A brazen, heavily made-up girl who looked at you with unconcealed contempt while you, hunched over, set the table. I remember how everything inside me just broke. I saw your face pale as a sheet and your hands trembling so much you could barely hold the plate of sliced bread. And he, my father, your husband, laughed. A loud, hearty laugh, the way he never laughed with us. He seated that girl in your place, Mama, in the chair at the head of the table that had always been yours by right. He poured her wine, the very same collectible bottle you had been saving for a special occasion. "The special occasion has arrived, my dear," he roared in your face when you tried to say something, and his eyes were filled with such icy contempt that I felt a chill run down to my bones. The girl giggled, adjusting her vulgar curls, and sipped the wine in small, greedy gulps, as if tasting your life, your dignity, your place in this home. I stood in the doorway, clenching my fists until my knuckles turned white, and I felt something dark and viscous, like tar, boiling inside me. It wasn't just hatred, it was anticipation. Anticipation of what I would do to him. That evening, I couldn't take it anymore. When he, drunk and pleased with himself, went to see his floozy off, I walked into the kitchen. You were sitting at the table, your head in your hands, your shoulders shaking slightly. On the table was the untouched plate with my birthday dinner, and next to it that same bottle of wine, now almost empty. I walked over and silently hugged you. You flinched, lifted your tear-stained eyes to me, and in them was such an abyss of despair that I understood this could not go on any longer. "Mama," I said in a whisper, and my voice sounded surprisingly firm and adult. "I will fix everything. I promise." I began my war not with a scream, but with a whisper. Revenge, I realized, is a dish best served not just cold, but frozen into a sharp, silent shard of ice. I stopped being a son. I became a shadow in his house, a dispassionate observer, a collector of his sins. By day, I was a diligent law student, a quiet boy who averted his eyes when he met his father. But at night, I transformed into an investigator. His study, that citadel of self-satisfaction, became my training ground. I learned to pick the locks on his desk drawers without a trace, to read his business correspondence, to peek into his secret notebook. And what I found there surpassed all my expectations. My father wasn't just a domestic tyrant. He was a spider who had woven a sticky web of debt, blackmail, and betrayal. His notebook contained the names of people he had bribed, the sums he had loaned out at predatory interest rates, and notes on the weaknesses of those he kept on a short leash. He was an architect of others' misfortunes, and our home was just one of the halls in his museum of broken lives. Every night, I photographed the pages of his notebook, copied documents from his safe, creating my own archive, my own indictment. You, Mama, watched me with anxiety. You saw how I was changing. Your impulsive, sensitive boy was turning into a calm, detached man with cold eyes. "What's wrong, son?" you would ask, trying to peer into my soul, but I had already built a wall there. I couldn't let you in on my plan, not because I didn't trust you, but because I wanted to preserve in you at least a shred of the purity he was so diligently trying to destroy. My revenge had to be mine alone, my sin and my redemption. I had to become the executioner so that you could remain the martyr, not an accomplice. I became the architect of destruction. My knowledge of jurisprudence, which I absorbed with a feverish greed, became my weapon. First, I sent an anonymous package of documents to the tax authorities. Not just a tip-off, but a meticulously prepared case with copies of his black accounting, tax evasion schemes, and proof of fictitious transactions. Then I began my game with his partners. I knew their secrets, for Father had so kindly written them down for me. To one of his debtors, whom Father was driving into the grave, I anonymously forwarded compromising material on Father himself, enough for the man not only to write off his debt, but to strike back. To another, his main competitor, I leaked information about an upcoming deal, allowing him to snatch the contract and deal a devastating financial blow to Father. I acted like a virus, penetrating his system and destroying it from within. His empire began to crumble at the seams. At first, he was furious, looking for traitors, firing people in droves. His shouting in the evenings grew louder, the sounds of breaking dishes more frequent. I saw how hard it was for you, Mama. I saw you flinch at his every step. And in those moments, two beasts fought within me, pity for you and the cold, intoxicating joy that my plan was working. He was becoming paranoid. He stopped trusting anyone but himself. He would sit in his study late into the night, trying to find the breach from which his money and power were leaking. He didn't see that the main breach was me, his quiet, inconspicuous son who wished him good night every evening and then slipped down to his study to deliver another blow. The finale was not loud, but humiliatingly quiet. He lost everything. The bank seized the company for debts. The former friends and partners he had blackmailed united and filed a class action lawsuit against him, demanding damages. Our house, that gilded cage, was seized by bailiffs and put up for auction. One evening, I walked into his study. He was sitting in the dark, in the armchair that just yesterday had seemed like a throne, and now looked pathetic and bulky. On the table before him was a bottle of cheap whiskey and a single glass. He was sober, and this made his defeat look even more crushing. He raised his empty eyes to me. "It was you," he said, not as a question, but as a statement. There was no anger or surprise in his voice, only a dull, all-consuming weariness. I nodded silently. I didn't make a speech. I didn't accuse. I just walked to the table and placed the last piece of the puzzle before him, a photograph. He looked at the photograph I had placed before him. It was of that same girl from my 16th birthday, laughing into the camera. Then his gaze shifted to me. There was no hatred in it, only a bottomless, scorched desert of grief. He gave a crooked smile, and that smile was more terrifying than any scream. "You think you were avenging her?" he whispered, and his whisper cut through the silence like a razor. "Stupid, stupid boy. You were nothing but a weapon in her hands this whole time, the most perfect and cruel weapon one could ever devise." I froze, not understanding. His words were the ramblings of a broken man. But he continued, and with every word, the icy foundation of my righteous vengeance cracked and crumbled to dust. "I know you're not my son," he said, looking me straight in the eye. "I found out when you were 2. She confessed herself during one of her quiet, tearful nights when her innocent sorrow became unbearable. She loved another man, always. And I was a convenient match. Status, a wallet. I couldn't divorce her. I didn't have the courage to air that shame in public, so I stayed. I raised you, provided for you, gave you my name. And she cried. She cried every day, her very presence reminding me of her betrayal. Her tears weren't from my insults, boy. My insults were from her tears. It was our war, hers and mine, quiet and ugly. She tortured me with her eternal grief, and I answered with drunkenness and cruelty. We were 2 spiders in one jar. And you? You were her trump card. She knew you would grow up one day. She knew you would love her and hate me. She raised you like an arrow to one day shoot me straight through the heart. And you did it. Good job, son. The air left my lungs. The world tilted and collapsed, burying me under the wreckage. Every scene from the past appeared in a new, monstrous light. Your quiet tears by the window, your flinching when he entered the room, your eternal, ostentatious victimhood. It wasn't suffering. It was a performance, a meticulous, years-long effort to create an avenger. I remembered how you would accidentally leave his journals open, how you would forget compromising papers in drawers, how you pushed me towards law school, saying you must know how to defend the weak. I walked out of the study and saw you in the hallway. You were standing there, hands pressed to your chest, looking at me with hope and triumph. There wasn't a trace of surprise in your eyes. You knew everything. You had been waiting for this moment. And I understood. I didn't take revenge for your tears. I took revenge with your tears. I destroyed a man who was guilty of many things, but not of what I had accused him. I had destroyed the other actor in your brilliant play. I walked past you as if you were a stranger. I rented a small apartment for you on the outskirts of the city. Your things were brought there. You will never cry again, Mama. Your war is over. You've won. But don't cry, Mama. Please don't cry. Because if I see even one more of your tears, I can't promise that I won't tell the whole world the truth. The truth that the most terrible tyrant in our family is you. Stories are born from emotions. If this story made you feel anything, please share your thoughts. Every comment is a spark of inspiration for new stories about struggle, strength, and the hope that never dies, even in the harshest reality. If you like the story, subscribe to the channel and you will hear even more thrilling stories.